I got hired, though I didn't fit the profile. They were looking at MBA engineers to write reports for a chemical portal.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't fit the profile, but yet they hired me.
You got it, okay.
Yeah, they hired me, and then after a few months, I was really bored sitting in office, so I went to my manager and I was like, I'd like to do something else, and then they put me in field data collection. So I spent time traveling across South India on a study for spices. So I visited farms. Okay. I remember a lot of excitement when there was back in, say, 2002, when there was a client with a 5,000 square feet office requirement.
Okay, that was big then.
That was big, yeah. And today, I think even the junior brokers don't really work on the 4,000 to 5,000 square feet.
Right.
It's somebody who's really fresh, who's cutting his teeth on deals that size in large organizations. If you look at a lot of space take up in the last couple of years, there's been, from a volume point of view, there's a lot of, especially in Chennai, you have a lot of medical coding companies. When I started in CB, my initial 9 months was spent doing retail transactions, which is like shops and retail spaces and display spaces. But within about 9 months, I moved on to the office side of the business, because the volume was much larger. Volume of transaction was much larger.
Hey everyone, today I've got the pleasure of hosting Kaushik on this recording, and Kaushik is somebody, ever since I got into GoFloaters, got introduced to Kaushik through a common connection of ours, and he's how do I say it? He's up there on the real estate for me, that I go back to him multiple times. I've gone back to him multiple times, and in a way, like, he's my unofficial mentor, advisor of sorts on many things. I've, like, whenever I hit a roadblock, I go to him, ask him, hey, how do I do this business, right? So that he's kind of kept me under his wings, if I have to call it, technically speaking, saying that okay, ye bachcha hai, seekh lega, kisne kisi din to seekh lega. So he's kind of helping me grow in the real estate world, and more specifically when GoFloaters got into doing a lot of transactions, I've been going back to Kaushik more often because this is his sweet spot, and this is his, how do I say it, territory and his kingdom. So we play a small part of that kingdom, so we kind of go back to him on that. So, but today I'm going to kind of spend time in kind of understanding what runs in Kaushik's head, how he got into this, and what's working for him, what keeps him excited. He's been, what, 20 years?
23 years.
23 years. So he's been at this for 23 years in the same space. So obviously he's enjoying it. He's here, right? So what keeps him motivated? What keeps him on his toes? What keeps him looking forward to the next year, right? We're gonna do that. So first, Kaushik, first I'm going to start off with a little bit of history. So how did you get into the real estate world, right? What was your first opportunity that got you into this? And then we'll go into what got you hooked into this. But first, how did it all start?
So after I graduated, after I did my economics, BA in economics in Chennai, I got a opportunity to do a postgraduate diploma in facilities management.
Okay.
Way back in 97.
Okay.
And after I'd finished that course and I came back to India, I spent a year doing many things, trying to learn computer coding, traveling.
You did that too?
Yes, I did that. And I realized that was something I wasn't very interested in. So around that time, a classmate of mine had joined a company called CBRE, okay, as a facility manager.
I heard the name, so it's hard to miss.
Yeah. So as a facility manager for a new building out in Santhom for Hindustan Lever.
Okay.
So it was a new facility that Hindustan Lever had moved in. So he had joined there. So I applied for a job, and I did get an offer from them. But when I looked at what else CBRE did besides facilities management, back then they used to manage Tiny Park. So that was a large client of theirs in South India. So I realized that they had a very small brokerage team of about 3 people. And I found that more interesting. And much later, I realized that it was a good decision, because when you're on the facility side of the business, your recognition is only when things are not working. When the lights are not working, the plumbing's broken.
You remember the...
Yes. Nobody tells you that, oh, the floors are great, the lighting is perfect, the ambience is great. So I decided that I'd get into the broking side of it And at that time, the market was very small and there was a waiting list. So I interviewed with all the real estate firms in Chennai and in Bangalore. And I got offers from 2 companies. Okay. At that time, I joined CBRE as a broker.
Okay.
In
So
2000.
this is 2001. Okay. Okay.
So I think it makes it 24 years, not
Okay.
33 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are in 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So I think, you said you got excited by brokerage. So did you see any deal happening? Did you see any,
No,
how did you get the taste of that?
I like the fact that it was work and I didn't need to sit at a desk
Okay.
all day, and it involved going out.
Yeah.
Because prior to getting into real estate, I'd worked with a market research firm.
Okay.
And I got hired, though I didn't fit the profile. They were looking at MBA engineers to write reports for a chemical portal.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't fit the profile, but yet they hired
got
me.
it. Okay.
Yeah, they hired me. And then after a few months, I was really bored sitting in office. So I went to my manager and I was like, I'd like to do something else. And then they put me in field data collection. So I spent time traveling across South India on a study for spices. I visited farms to see how spices are grown, how it moves in the market, and how does it go retail, and who are the exporters involved. So I spent several weeks traveling across Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, covering major spices, and eventually working on that report as well.
Okay. So the exposure to do some kind of a field role was better. You got taste of it at this company, and then when you saw that happening as a broker, you kind of said, hey, this is the.
So when I looked at the opportunity in real estate and the fact that I could stay at a building and manage it versus I could work on leasing.
Right.
Leasing was a more outdoorsy kind of job role, and I found that more appealing. Okay. But I had to wait for a few months till there was an opening, and then I joined them. Yeah.
Okay. And how long was your stint at CBRE in that role?
I spent 6 years with them.
Okay. So, I mean, this is one thing that for me as well, right? So, I got an opportunity to be a software guy, but there was an aha moment that happened. It didn't happen initially. Initially, it was the money. Initially, for me, it's probably the opposite side, that I had to be in an AC office, red coffee mug on one hand, right, and then on laptop and all that. So you don't have to move anywhere. So that kind of got me to like a software job, right? And obviously the fact that you're coding, you're building something. But there was an aha moment that happened to me a year and a half into my software career. And that's when I decided that my rest of the life is going to be to do with technology and software. So what was your aha moment? Like, I know you got initiated into being a broker, but then for 24 years you've been doing this, which means that there's something, maybe one big moment that happened that kind of you decided that, hey, this is it. I found my passion here.
Well, I don't think I was bored, because if I look at my previous 2 employments, one was for a duration of 6 years and the next one was for a duration of 8 years. And I quit in about 9 years ago to start working for myself.
Right.
So it's been fairly long stints. It's not like I've spent a year and a half, 2 years.
And I'm talking about not the company itself, but the real estate consultant as a career path. What is that one aha moment that kind of said that, hey, this is like my rest of my life is I'm going to do this, right? Because I heard a CB or STAD, right?
I don't think there was a specific moment, because if at some point of time I didn't really enjoy what I was doing, then I would have obviously stopped it.
Right.
And the way I look at it, I'm in sales. So today it happens to be real estate. Tomorrow it could be anything.
Right.
And right now, the whole idea of working in real estate has not become boring.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sure. And on that part, right? So again, I'm going to ask you a question. This 24 years, like I said, it's always been interesting, right? And then sales is something that you love doing. Now, being outdoor is something that you really love, and your job is giving you both of that. But one other thing that I want to ask you is, like, in these 24 years that you've been at it, you've seen the market also evolve, right? And we spoke about it before this. Like, you see that it's never the same. every year you've got different things pick up for that year. I mean, we are talking about Flex. 2024 was a year of managed offices. So every year has got a different flavor for you. So how have you seen this market evolve in this 24 years? Like some maybe if you nuggets of some inflection points that you saw in the market.
Deal sizes have become much larger. I remember a lot of excitement when there was back in say 2002 when there was a client with a 5,000 square feet office requirement.
Okay. That was big then.
That was big. Yeah. And today, I think even the junior brokers don't really work on the 4 to 5,000 square feet. Right. It's somebody who's really fresh, who's cutting his teeth on deals that size in large organizations.
Right.
Yeah.
So one is the deal size. And then you also mentioned about how the real estate patterns are dependent on how the industries pick up. Like you would have seen waves of, like, I mean, when you say 2001, I think I probably also got into my job at the time, right? Y2K and IT services was huge in India, right? So, and that kind of obviously gave a lot of demand to real estate. I mean, companies needed swanky campuses and all that. So you've seen different waves of it come about, right? So what for you would be those inflection points in real estate, different waves that kind of evolved the market further?
See, the waves I would say would depend on the type of jobs that we're getting offshore to India. If you look at a lot of space take up in the last couple of years, there's been from a volume point of view, there's a lot of, especially in Chennai, you have a lot of medical coding companies.
Got it.
Yeah. I understand that there is a lot of consolidation happening in this space. There's a lot of private equity money in this space.
Right.
So there are a lot of entrepreneurs building these companies to look at offloading them.
Medical coding. So, okay, interesting.
So because when we look at the data on a year-on-year basis of companies that have taken space, it's not just the company and the primary business of the company, right? Because you may have an engineering products company in the US, but what is the nature of work that is done at, say, their office in Chennai, which employs 3,000 people? So if you break that down further, then you get an idea in terms of what are the nature of jobs that are being created in this local market, or what kind of an ecosystem is there.
Right.
Because I think a large portion of the Alexa project used to operate out of OMR.
Correct.
Yeah. There are cases where that has also evolved, because at some point of time, I think they didn't really need as many people on the project.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also one more unit. My friend used to be part of that. It was their Fire tablet business. Okay. Right? So that was also coming out of, I think, the OMR Perungudi Center that Amazon had. So yeah, very interesting to see like how the need, like I said, it's primarily been outsourcing, right? What work got outsourced? Right? It was IT, then there was KPO, there was BPO, now you're seeing medical coding. So what gets outsourced for labor arbitrage, that kind of defines how the real estate,
and for that also about availability of that many number of resources, because like early when we would take customers out on site tours, it wasn't about a building in OMR competing with, say, a building in Gindi competing with a building in Ambattur. It could be a building here competing with a micro market in Hyderabad, competing with a micro market in Pune, right? A micro market in Bangalore.
Driven by the talent pool, potential talent pool.
Driven by talent pool and driven by real estate, because in these cycles over the last 20 years, there have been some decisions taken in certain locations purely because of the availability of space. So if you needed to set up a certain size, then you went to where the real estate was available. And when you had a choice with real estate in more attractive locations, then you choose that. Subsequently.
Got it.
So if you look at the buildings and you look at vacancy, historical vacancy, that'll give you answers.
So now on that journey of yours, right? So we spoke about 6 years at CB, then 8 years, and that was Colliers.
Yes.
Right? And then STAD happened.
Almost 9 years now.
Yeah. What was that trigger point for STAD to happen?
So in all these years, like 23, 24 years, I've worked on a variety of real estate transactions. So when I started in CB, my initial 9 months was spent doing retail transactions, which is like shops, okay, and retail spaces and display spaces. But within about 9 months, I moved on to the office side of the business because the volume was much larger. Volume of transactions was much larger. So I moved into that. So, and when I moved to Colliers 6 years later, say around year and a half or 2 years into my stint in Colliers, I got exposed to industrial real estate.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity to build a team in industrial real estate. So I was looking after both commercial, I had a team for commercial office space and got a team for industrials. So that gave me that exposure. And then the subsequent exposure was working on corporate disposals because there's a lot of real estate which is owned by corporates and they want to dispose it in a transparent way with a broker. So they appoint a broker. So I got to work on few of those assets. Okay. So while all these years have been with, say, 3 firms over the last 24 years, the type of transactions that I worked on are very different. Yeah. And when you work with a large company, you have the advantage of colleagues in different markets. And you also have the advantage of different services. Say a team that focuses on industrial, a team that focuses on retail, a team that focuses on consulting, which as a small company, you don't have access to all of those in-house. You can always partner with somebody on a specific deal. Right. Which is what we do currently. Currently. So the exposure has been quite broad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this so when you decided that I'm going to start my own,
Yes.
so obviously you've already built a lot of exposure to the market, exposure to client base, exposure to the services that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what is that point that you decided that, okay, now is a point that I can safely launch myself and my firm into this, right? So
Okay. Then again, I guess the
I went to do this, right? After 18 years of salaried job, it's a difficult decision to make.
I didn't see further growth within corporate, and thankfully the exposure that I had in the market was I had worked on a lot of transactions that were locally sourced, and I was very confident that I will still be able to source some of those under my own brand. So that was the confidence that I had when I started to work for myself.
So the investment, you had already made the investment. So it was just to reap the rewards of the investment you already made.
I'd say that relationships were.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, services is entirely a relationship business. Besides knowing what you're doing. Because relationship and not knowing what you're doing is a disaster because it also ends relationship.
Right. Sure. So that kind of brings me to the segue into the next section I wanted to say, right? I hear STAD's name and your name quite frequently when I talk to operators, when I talk to other people in the real estate world. So, and I think the one that I liked about what he said earlier, which I also wanted to share, is that it is very easy to get pulled into different directions, but you've stayed focused. You said, this is the market, this is the segment that I do, and I only pick up these customers, and this is the kind of things, work that I do, right? You've been very focused. When you said that, you said many things, but I want you to share that as well. Is that, what, if you have to look back, right, connecting the dots backwards in the last 9 years, what are the 3 things, 4 things, 5 things that has made you successful and your team at STAD successful? What would you say are the 3 fundamental things, basic things that got you to where you are today?
See, the thing is,
and I'll tell you, I'm not making it up. There's a huge respect that people have for you, right? I've spoken to people that say like,
okay, and it's the relationship that you build and how you choose to engage, right? I'm a firm believer that you can't do everything yourself, but the things that you choose to do, you should be reasonably good at it.
Yeah.
So coming back to, as a broker offering real estate services, you have to choose which part of the market you want to address.
Right.
So if you look at a market like Chennai, it consists of various micro markets. for any broker getting into this business, I would tell them that you focus on a market which gives you enough opportunity, which you are able to cover reasonably well.
Right.
Don't spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
And then focus on transactions in that market. So that way, eventually you'll figure it out. So even if you're new to real estate, because trying to chase every single opportunity in each direction, is a lot of time being spent. But I'm not sure when you're going to see results from that.
Right. I think you kind of when we last caught up over the phone, you were also narrating a very interesting story of how somebody was helping HNIs with homes got to become really good at being a commercial real estate broker also, right? It's also about knowing your customers well and knowing the opportunity, spotting that opportunity and latching onto that.
Yeah. So largely, if you look at it, the real estate space, since it's not regulated, at least the real estate brokerage space is not really regulated. I mean, you do have RERA when it comes to sale of apartments,
Correct.
but for otherwise doing other transactions, there is no sort of licensing. There's no basic requirement from a law point of view, to rent office space or do the transactions that you and me work.
Yeah.
Right. So I think as a broker who is able to understand what the client wants and be able to deliver it, you stand a natural advantage to somebody who is not very organized. And I believe that being organized again is from a data point of view, because if you don't have the data, if you have too much of data also, that's a problem, because sometimes you might get overwhelmed, saying I'm covering 8,000 whatever, and then you realize that it's a nightmare to actually update those records.
Right.
And if you're not really getting inquiries in those, we should be dropping that.
So I'll come back to the point. So you said one, knowing the customer really well, right? And then being micro focused or having a sharp focus on a market, on a service that you want to offer, and get to be the expert there, right? And then expand once you've kind of become the king of a hill, then you probably look at
Not really. I think what is also very important is to identify people in the brokerage space, to kind of interview them, understand what they're good at, and see where the opportunity is for you to partner with them on a deal basis.
Got it.
Because you get a lot of information being a real estate broker, because you're in the market, you're talking to a lot of people, you understand what's happening in the market. So the way I would look at deals is, one is sharing information with people for whom it's relevant. And in real estate, it's very often people who would share a number with you and expect to get paid. So that's unreal. So we decline most of those because it makes no sense. So, but we share a lot of leads in the market to people on a goodwill basis. We co-broke on some where we have a good relationship with the client and the values are interesting.
Correct. Yeah. So if you have to distill, I think you mentioned this as well, right? If I don't know what's the right word to put it, what would be your secret sauce, or what sets you and STAD apart when it comes to, because again, like you said, right, there's no qualification or license for anybody. So technically, you compete with everybody who's out there, right? I compete with everybody out there, right? So what do you think are the things that you've built over time that kind of really make you stand out in front of your customer or in front of the other competitors that you work with?
See, a lot of times I get asked, why does somebody need a broker, right? Because this is something.
Seriously, I always know the answer.
Because why do I exist? This is a self-service kind of thing. You can log into multiple portals. They'll give you information for free or information at some sort of fee. Most often, customers are not taking space on a monthly or a annual basis. You're doing this exercise once in 2 years, maybe 3 years, once in 5 years.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of thing. So and if you go to a broker who's organized, who has data, who has relationships in the market, knows what is the availability, what's the pulse,
Right.
ask the tenant enough questions to be able to understand the brief. Then you'll be able to provide a solution. Most often what we do when we work with customers is we make two lists. One is the list as per their brief. Here. The next is a list that we feel that the customer should consider given our understanding of the market.
Okay.
And there are some times when customers close some deals from the list that we've provided. But we've shared it as two separate lists.
Okay.
And we don't really force the customer saying you have to look at this.
So the first list is what they wanted. Second list is what I recommend or you suggest that they look at.
Okay, that they look at.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
It could be a type of property. It could be a different micro market. And a lot of times when we do site visits with customers, we also get feedback from each property that they're looking at.
Right.
And so we are able to change the subsequent options that we go to.
Right.
That you'd be able to do if you know your inventory.
Yeah.
If you're going to be on a completely online model where you've looked at photographs, then you have, if you're not familiar,
you're not grounded. You're not grounded with the inventory.
it's very difficult to do that.
Absolutely. So, and one important challenge that I am facing, right, when it specifically comes to, we do much smaller, mostly startups. So, 20 seats, 30 seats, 40 seats, and sometimes rarely we might do 100 seats, right? One thing that has always bothered me is like, how do you qualify the customer, right? How do you qualify the lead, rather? I wouldn't say customer. How do you qualify the lead? Question part one of the question. Part two is that like you said, the client has given you a brief, right? But that brief is probably like 20% or 30% of what exactly. A lot of things go unsaid, right? A lot of things, like you said, during site visit, based on their feedback, you get to learn something, right? So I want to understand your process of trying to understand what the customer really wants, right? He might only say a few things, but there are a few other things like, for example, you ask them a budget, you'll get a number, but then half the time I'm guessing, is this the number they actually want? Or they can pay more or pay less? You're always guessing on that, right? So how do you go about really, because I think, like you said, if you know exactly what the customer wants, probably half of the job is done there, right? So how do you get to that? How do you get to, number one, choose the customers, choose the leads that you want to work with, qualify, and number two, how do you understand what exactly the customer wants?
Usually, it's only through a dialogue with the customer.
Right.
So one way is you sit down with the customer and you have your laptop, and then you can show them all the data. You run them through that. The other one is where you go out and you physically see spaces and then accordingly. And there are some occasions where clients do end up taking something vastly different from their original brief, because they may just see something in that they like, and if they do, then they'll sell that idea internally. But it's your responsibility to try and tell them what is there.
So how do you, like, again, I'll probably go back to this question. If I have to ask you, in simple words, what are the questions? What is the questionnaire that you have in your mind? And what are the things that you think are the 5 or 6 things that you want to absolutely get correctly from the customer? Obviously capacity, how many seats, all this, some basic.
When we ask customers, since a lot of what we do is traditional office space, which is renting a warm shell or a pre-furnished office, we ask people what's the size, what are their preferred locations, how many people they're looking to accommodate, do they have customers visiting their office?
Okay.
Do they have customers visiting their office? And how do employees commute? Okay. And if there are any specific parameters that are important for them when it comes to ranking a building or a location.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll take the last one. It sounds very interesting, right? Because then what is their mental model of saying this I like and this I don't like, or this will fit or this doesn't fit?
Because there are also customers that we meet who say that we need to be in the best building.
Mm-hmm. And they truly mean that, or they're just saying that because
No, they mean that.
okay,
Because that's part of their whole corporate beam.
okay.
And if you look at other locations that they're in similar kind of buildings.
And so that brings me to the point. How much of once you've met a client, once you've gotten introduced to a client, what kind of research do you do on the client itself for you to kind of understand telltale signs or to understand, get a lot of signals? Do you do a lot of study into, let's say, ABC Corp comes to you? Do you try to understand ABC Corp beyond what a client has shared?
We basically look at whatever data we are able to find online. We see what is the data that I think a lot more of this research is done by some large landlords because they have whole teams that are engaged with trying to get more information about these clients. Yeah.
Okay. And then coming to the last segment of what I wanted to ask you, what do you think do consultants get wrong most of the time, right? So you've been there 24 years, right? You've probably hired a lot of them. Some of them have clicked for STAD, some of them have not clicked for you, right? Some of them would have clicked under you in Colliers or CBRE before. So what do you think typically people get wrong, right? So why do they go wrong, right? In terms of being a good broker or being a good consultant, what kind of mistakes they end up making?
I think the biggest mistake is not knowing your database or your inventory, your stock.
Yeah.
And regardless of your level within the organization, I think the knowledge of the market is very important.
Right.
Because that is what you're advising your tenants on. So if you don't have that data, you don't have first-hand data,
Right.
then it becomes very difficult for you to provide the right advice. And it's important to also, and since we've been only talking about tenants and their requirements, it's also important to look at the landlords, because if you look at the way the market currently is, I think a bulk of the fee is actually paid by the landlords. So it's also important to sit down and talk to the landlords to understand what their expectations are.
Okay.
And if you can be fair in your transactions, I think you have a supporter for life.
Got it. And coming to my last question, right? So last year, 2024, we spoke about it before this meeting, is that 44% of commercial real estate was flex, something like that, something around that. And then they say it'll double in the next couple of years and triple in the next 5 years and so on and so forth, right? So obviously, but in the context of real estate, cumulatively, flex is still a very small portfolio. It's just in the last 2-3 years post-pandemic, it's kind of become the beast that we all know, and we know about the IPOs that are going about and all that. What do you predict in 2025 and beyond? So do you think flex will still have the limelight? What's your reading?
While there are a lot of large enterprise deals that are happening in flex, I feel a very interesting segment is for mid-sized companies that want to be in a really good quality campus type environment. It's possibly looking at anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 square feet or 4,000 to 7,000 square feet.
Right.
The only way that they can get into a campus style environment, is to take space within flex. Because minimum sizes in these large grade A campuses is about 20,000.
Yeah.
And the owners and managers there can't seem to break it down.
Correct. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And the only option there is through flex.
But I have a feeling that Chennai as a market is probably not gotten to that as yet. I see more of the campus style tech park, flex within tech park happening more so in Bangalore and maybe in Hyderabad. Chennai, probably the fact that you don't have so many grade A tech parks also. I don't know, maybe I'm getting it wrong. But do you see that as a pan-India trend, or do you see that trend localized to certain tier 1 cities?
If you look at spaces, I think today a lot of flex operators are taking very, very large inventory.
Right.
If you looked at the biggest model of 20 years ago, it was about taking space that was anywhere between 20 to 30,000 square feet and building a center.
Right.
A few years down, they worked on smaller formats, which was say 10,000 square feet or 15,000 square feet,
Right.
where it's spread across the city.
Right.
I don't know how many of those are still operational or attractive to the current space occupiers.
Yeah. But what I see is that in Chennai, at least the markets, the managed office operators that I've studied, right, they seem to be more happy to take up the entire building, right? Because because the other model of flex that operators prefer is a partnership model, right, and a share model, right? And this seems to be working more with the landlord owning the entire building, and you say, I'll take up the entire building. This is the rev share that I'll do, right? And whereas in tech parks, they can't afford to do that. So tech parks don't, I don't know if they do, they're not amenable to a rev share model of a partnership. I'm not sure, right? So I see more of standalone managed offices, standalone buildings, kind of managed offices coming about. Whereas co-working, like you said, you have them in tech parks, right? But managed offices, I see them more of taking standalone buildings. Is that I'm reading the patterns correctly here?
No, I think all the flex operators, I mean, whether you call it co-working or flex, I mean, they're all the same segment.
Right.
They're willing to go to any building the customer wants to be in. So they're not restricting themselves as to, saying that it's only my building that I need to sell. If there's a client who wants to take a size which is attractive for them, they're willing to lease space in that building and provide a solution.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. I mean, and the last proof point is we work in DLF Manapakam, right? The latest launch. So it proves the point that that's a place where flex operators need to be in. So your last comment on again 2025 and beyond, where do you see this going? Again, maybe put Chennai into the spotlight. When I go to events, RE events, everybody's cribbing about supply not being there in Chennai. Chennai supply is not there. It will not, like, whatever they maxed out, right? Next 2 years, we will lag behind other markets because we don't have supply. So how do you see that from your angle?
Well, they're not wrong to be saying that.
Right.
But then a lot of this involves 2-3 very large transactions that could take up space that is being built. And you need to look at, in terms of space absorption within the Chennai market, how much of it is new space take up or how much of it is relocation. Well, if you look at some of the parks, as a result of companies moving to newer campuses or newer buildings, there is a degree of vacancy which is there right now.
Right.
And there is some vacancy that you're going to see in the months ahead. So vacancy in an existing established park also creates opportunity for other companies to be able to move in.
Correct.
And the market also has evolved. So if you look at the time that, say, Sholingalur was developed or Porur was developed, here the concept at the time that it was initially developed, it was considered far outside the city. But the perception now is no longer the same.
Yeah.
So people's perception to these markets have also changed. And
So I think, I was one of the first people to crimp about coming to Sholingalur Infosys campus. That was my first job, right? So but now that seemed to be outskirts, and now that's literally the heart of the city, heart of this part of OMR at least.
But there are also certain locations that have become self-sustaining in some ways. Like if you look at the Navlur market, which is around the Siruseri IT Park and companies that are there, a lot of people working in that location, there is fairly good support infrastructure. Like the Chettinad Hospital, the hospitals, malls, there are a lot of retail. There's good quality housing. You've got Hirananda. Across all budgets, you've got housing that people can either buy or rent.
Right.
And I don't think they're really worried about how long it's going to take them to go to Nungumbakam.
Correct.
I think it's not relevant if you work in Suruseri. True. How long it's going to take you to get to. You might find the odd person from Ananagar doing the daily commute there. But then I don't think they make up bulk of the girl. And you have similar examples even in other locations across India, wherever you've got like these large-sized offices that have opened up.
Right. So your prediction, I mean, maybe I'll just extend this further. So do you see more Guindy, everybody says is saturated, right? I don't know, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So where do you see the next set of both flex and non-flex, but do you see Porur further down south of OMR and another kind of catching up to take away the demand from Guindy?
No, Guindy is very attractive, but if you look at it, given the land parcels, I think you only have 3 very large size buildings or 2 buildings which are more than 1 million square feet in the Guindy industrial estate. Right. Chances for somebody to do a similar sized building, I think looks very tough right now. But you have a lot of good quality new buildings in Guindy. Right. And what you can't, while you can complain saying that there is no campus style, you have new buildings and the location, it's already a developed market. Correct. Yeah. So if your space requirement is not very, very large, then it's a good location to be in. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. I think that sums up as to what I wanted to, at least in this edition, peel the onion from you.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, please, go ahead. Okay.
Now, have you
Let me get ready.
finally decided that you're a broker, or do you still
Good question.
as a
So,
tech guy?
no, I'm
That
still,
is,
see, I can't shed off my, my first passion, which is to technology. Right? That kind of still stays in fact. In fact, I would, I keep attempting to do this, right? So even in transactions, we're trying to do a little bit of tech. I sent you our interactive proposal option deck sometime. I found that very interesting. Yeah. So we're trying to see what could be made better with that, because my how is it read? So yes, we have gotten into the hardcore truth of real estate. We've gotten into that. So we were on the fringes doing on demand and doing all of that, which we continue to do. But we jumped into the pit, if I have to call it, right? So, but having said that, my brain is still, maybe probably looking back only I can tell if it's going to be successful or not. But now we are still trying to push the boundaries on that. So, for example, you talked about inventory. So we didn't do a proper good job of, now that we've decided we are going to get in there. So we're now putting tech to make inventory document that really well, right? And marrying that with the point that you said is to be physically there. So I probably twice a week I'm actually at one of these, so that we work launch. Will hopefully next door neighbor who will come up will go there for the launch. So your friend and I've gotten used to him through you. So we are kind of trying to blend these two worlds. So my heart of the passion of infusing technology into this is still going to be there. But maybe whether it's a new breed of brokerage that we do, or we end up trying something and it stays as a very niche thing, I don't know. But yeah, but I don't think so I can completely wean myself out of technology as yet. But yeah, we've gotten into doing the hard stuff that you do. Being out there, it's speaking clients along, right? Showing them the places. We kind of got into doing that. Yeah. But I think, having said that, I still feel that we are more suited to do flex than do everything. And to your point, I think we said that's the focus, and that also we said Chennai is the focus, and maybe we'll do other markets purely for a referral thing. And in fact, I took a leaf from your book. So we're also working with a lot of channel partners now, right, in different cities. Because again, I soon realized that the intimacy with the client and meeting them in person, taking them around, looking at their body language when you walk them around, right? All of this gives you a lot of data, and you can't do that remotely, right? So you can't build trust remotely. So we've also taken that approach to do that, and now we are giving tech to our channel partners. Some of them are using our CRM product, saying that, hey, I didn't have a CRM, or I tried all these products and it is not meeting my demand. So you seem to be having a good CRM. Can I use it? Okay, yeah, take an instance and run your CRM on it. So that way, I think some way or the other we are trying to build a blend of these two. Okay, where it goes, I don't know. We're also building some tech for operators to give us inventory more on the on-demand side. Maybe that might extend to give inventory on the flex side also. I don't know. So I think I'm keeping all my cards open in that sense, I would say.
Okay.
But again, 4 years, 5 years down the line, whether this all works out or not is something you will see, I'll also see. But yeah, that's what we're doing.
But it's nice that we sat down and had this chat. And I'm glad you've stayed the course and you're, continuing to evolve.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that's true, right? I mean, I was telling jokingly to somebody, I wouldn't have imagined 7 years, 8 years. You're 24 years, so you've invested a long more time. But I've invested 7, 8 years into. I mean, we started differently, as you know, right? We started cafe co-working and all that. But if this problem was not interesting enough to solve, right? I wouldn't have. I mean, the next day would have been much harder to get up from bed and do this again, right? And again and again. So I think I don't know. I'm not able to define it, but something is definitely exciting me to kind of stay in this business domain, but then see how tech can be infused here. So I think that definitely over the last 7 years that I've been at it, the problems that I get to solve and the way I get to solve has kept on evolving. So that kept me motivated to say, okay, maybe I should try this differently next day when I go to the office, or I should try a different way of approaching the problem statement. So I think that's, I don't know if I can say I'll retire as a real estate professional, but at least the next 5 years, I see myself being in this game.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice.
Awesome, Kaushik. It's always pleasure to catching up with you. And again, when we exchange, I always go away with a lot of things to say. Okay, maybe I should think about this. I've gotten more so in this session. So thank you for that. And like I said, keep happy or I would say gratitude that you've kept Go Floaters under your wings. You look out for us, right? You look out for me specifically, and keep nudging me. Hey, do this, do that, or don't do this. Right, or maybe you should do this better. So thanks for all that.
Yeah. Thanks, Sham.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me over.
Pleasure is mine.
Yeah.